Is Ryan Day on the short list of the best coaches in college football right now? And is he on the short list of one of the great coaches of the last, 25 years? Let's talk about that. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, consider hitting that subscribe button, liking this video, and answer the question below. Do you think Ryan Day is one of the great college football coaches in America today, past, or present? And as we talk about that, right, as we talk about college football, and football is a big part of this show, would always be an enormous part of the show, I think one of the things that I've also wanted to know is, what will Ohio State fans think about this? Because the thing about being an Ohio State head coach is you're expected to win because you're going to be given the machine to win. You're going to be given the tools to win. You're never going to need to worry about being out-recruited. Not really. You're never going to need to worry about whether or not the public is going to be behind you. Not really. You're never going to need to worry about whether or not the athletic department, and by that measure, the university, is behind you. And you're never going to need to worry about the business, the economic impact of what you're doing at Ohio State being the thing that gets in the way, right? Sometimes when we see great programs, we don't always think what else is sustained by that program's greatness. I remember having this conversation with Cardale Jones as he's getting ready to join in the NIL space and really help lead the foundation and create these kinds of ventures that allow for the players that choose Ohio State to get paid handsomely for doing so. He told me, look, RJ, I talked to an economics professor at Ohio State who told me that he believes there's $1 billion in economic impact and revenue in the state of Ohio and in Columbus after one home game for Ohio State. And consider you get 6 of those, sometimes 7 every year. You also get an entire cottage industry that is built around Ohio State football. It's one of the most protected and profitable trademarks, copyrights in all of sports. It's one of those programs on the short list that when it is doing well, the sport is doing well. To be the head coach at Ohio State is not only to accept the mandate of needing to win each and every year and play for championships each and every year. It is accepting the mandate that if you do not, you have failed. I'm thinking about this from the standpoint of some past coaches because I think about Nick Saban winning 7 national championships at FBS, greatest of all time, 6 at Alabama, all since 2003, right? We might not see another run like that ever, where a guy was able to do that at 2 different programs, but also rebuild a program into a juggernaut and rewrite the rules of football. So much so that when we look at Nick Saban, we want to see him do the kitchen nightmares, but like at Kent State, like with Gordon Ramsay and whatnot, have a hell week and then a build week. I think that could be fun, especially going into this year. And I think about Jim Tressel, who only won one national championship at Ohio State, but won 4 at the FCS level, Youngstown State, and is lieutenant governor at Ohio right now. I don't know that I'd be voting for Jim Tressel, but I would certainly be listening to what he's got to say, because when we talk about what that man has stood for and how he has gone about doing his business, there aren't a whole lot of men that can say they did it with as much integrity as Mr. Sweatervest himself. Then you've got Urban Meyer, who's kind of on the other end of the Jim Tressel discussion, but also won 3 national championships, 2 at Florida, 1 at Ohio State. So off the rip, they're already way ahead of Urban Meyer, of Ryan Day. Urban Meyer's got, I believe, the highest winning percentage of any coach that has coached more than a decade. It was not always easy. It was not always clean, but Urban went out there and he got W's at Florida and Ohio State. Okay. Then I look around and I see Dabo Swinney, who's won a couple of national championships at Clemson. We might not see somebody do that at a university that small ever again. And I think about the juggernaut that LSU has built, where you can trade out Les Miles for Ed Orgeron and Nick Saban and you still win championships. I think about what Texas should be, right? Or the idea that Texas A&M would be a spot where I would expect a guy like Ryan Day to go and have to prove it, because being at Ohio State feels like found money. I'm also this far into the segment before I say you cannot be the greatest coach at Ohio State of all time if you have a losing record against Michigan. I dare say you got to go undefeated against Michigan in your tenure at this time to even get into that discussion for many Ohio State fans. I don't think that that's too shabby at all by saying that, but he's not going to do that. I think he could win the next 4 in a row right? Maybe get back to 500 against Michigan. Still not going to be on the list of greatest of all time. You'll be on the list, I think, of great head coaches because you've already done something that some have not, like John Cooper, for instance. I also think that because there have only been so many Ohio State head coaches, I want to say it's like 7 since 1950, maybe fewer. I just got to count them out because I know I'm missing somebody, but there's Woody in there, there's Earl in there, there's John in there, there's Tressel in there. We can count Luke Fickell for that year. I don't tend to. There's Urban in there, and now there's Ryan, right? I'm sure I missed somebody, and you let me know in the comments below, but the job doesn't open up that often. And there's good reason because you win a bunch, you get to stay. And Urban needed to step down because the headaches were getting to him, the stress of the job. And I think that's going to come for every head coach at some point or another. You can only have this high of blood pressure for so long before people start to go, okay, let's think about our health now that we are millionaires several times over. For Ryan Day to enter into that conversation of the greatest head coaches we've ever seen in the sport, I think he has to win at least 4 national championships at Ohio State. I don't think that's asking too much to be anointed as one of the better coaches to ever step foot on the sideline. You'll also remember that it was a really quick rise for him at Ohio State. Like once he got there, he went from king play caller to the head guy. And really, I think that would be the thing that I would mention. He stepped into that role pretty quickly, pretty seamlessly. Now, Urban left him a really good deal, like what Bob Stoops did with Lincoln Riley. So you only get so much credit for that, but also you didn't wreck the car. And I tend to put a lot of stock into people that didn't wreck the car. But he is ahead of Lincoln Riley. He is ahead of Kalen DeBoer. He is ahead of others. But Kirby Smart, for instance, he's got more claim to this than Ryan Day does. But if he can put together a run, like continue 2024 success into 2025, into 2026, we're probably going to start talking about him in that way. Now, I realize it's putting the cart before the horse, and it is still May when we're having this conversation, but it is one that I wanted to have. It is one that I thought was worth investigating as we think about, he's going to have a new starting quarterback again. Their 4th starting quarterback in as many years, right? They're going to have a new set of tailbacks. They're going to have their number 1 wide receiver, their number 2 wide receiver, and then you're going to have to wait for Brandon Ennis or Mylan Graham to step up. You're going to see what the bookends can do now that Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau are gone, to say nothing of Cody Simon in the middle. They're going to be a little bit tinkery on the defensive side with Matt Patricia, but you've also got Caleb Downs back there, who is a friggin' pterodactyl and the best safety in all of football, maybe the best defender in all of college football, maybe the best player in all of college football behind Jeremiah Smith. So as we continue to have these discussions, I wanted to put it to you. I really wanted to ask, what would it take for you to think that Ryan Day was one of the great coaches in the sport, past, present? And do you think that 4 championships is too many, not enough? And at a place like Ohio State, for instance, like if you were Marcus Freeman and you win a championship at Notre Dame, we're probably going to put you in this conversation because it's been that difficult for Notre Dame to win a national championship. All to say, at least we're having this discussion about Ryan Day now. Because up until winning the national championship, it was all about what this guy could not get done. In many respects, it's like Lando Norris from McLaren. You've got the best car. All you got to do is not wreck it and not make any mistakes. And we've seen what Oscar Piastri could do in the same car. So I was very happy to see him take pole at Monaco and get the W. But he's not going to get that much credit for it because we've always known he's got the talent to do something like this. Like Ryan Day's always had the talent to win a national championship. But you come up short against Michigan. Again, you come up short in the college football playoff against Georgia. You come up short in the national championship game against one of the greatest Alabama teams, greatest teams of all time, 2020. It was important for him to get to this measure so we could have this discussion in May as opposed to having a discussion about maybe that guy gets fired. And that ain't the one I wanted to have. I like Ryan Day. I think he's great for college football. I think he's great for the Buckeyes. And I think he understands the place in a way that people don't give him credit for. Now, I want to see how far he can push this. What does excellence look like for him? How will Ohio State adapt to being the hunted? How will they respond to being the national champs and defending that crown in 2025? Can't wait to see it.